Everyone thinks blonde hair means European roots today, but DNA finally proved the story is completely different. Scientists discovered blonde hair evolved twice on opposite sides of the planet. Each population uses a totally different gene for hair. This isn't a theory at all. The evidence is clear and undeniable. Everything taught about blonde hair origins was wrong. How could this trait appear in the darkest-skinned populations? They have no European ancestry at all. The answer rewrites human history. It also exposes what science missed for decades. For generations, scientists and the public agreed on one story. All blonde hair came from Europe. The assumption ran deep. People pointed to Scandinavian roots, Viking ancestry, and Northern Lights. They cited these sources whenever blonde hair appeared. Textbooks and anthropology lectures repeated the idea. Blonde hair meant European genes. That was the final word. Explorers and missionaries landed in the Solomon Islands. They saw children with bright blonde hair and dark brown skin. They reached for easy explanations. Some blamed European sailors or traders who passed centuries ago. Others said the tropical sun bleached hair over years. They added salt water and heat as factors. A few suggested a fish-rich diet changed hair color. These theories became accepted wisdom. None were ever proven. No one had tracked family trees. No one had tested inheritance. The idea that blonde hair could appear in the Pacific was dismissed as impossible. Eurocentric thinking colored every interpretation. If you saw blonde hair, logic said a European connection existed, but ground evidence never quite fit. In the Solomon Islands, blonde hair ran in families. It appeared generation after generation. Even remote villages untouched by outsiders showed it. The trait did not skip randomly. It was not limited to children in the sun. No records show mass European settlement in these islands. No genetic studies link the trait to European lineage. Yet the myths persisted. Scientists clung to the single origin story because it was simple. It was familiar and unchallenged. More researchers visited the Pacific, and questions grew louder. Why did this trait appear only on certain islands? Why did the darkest-skinned people outside Africa have the brightest blonde hair? The old answers no longer held up. The mystery of Melanesian blondes exposed cracks in the single origin claim. Something in DNA was waiting to be found. Stanford researchers arrived in the Solomon Islands in 2012. They were determined to finally solve the mystery. Decades of speculation had left many questions unanswered. They needed solid data, not any guesses at all. The team collected saliva and hair samples from more than 1,000 islanders. They focused analysis on two groups, 43 blondes and 42 dark-haired individuals. This pairing let them compare DNA of those with the trait to those without. Every participant was documented, and each family connection was tracked. Researchers wanted to know if the blonde trait followed an inheritance pattern. They charted family trees across villages, searching for clusters and repeats. The results were impossible to completely ignore for anyone. Blonde hair appeared repeatedly in the same families, skipping no generations. It was unaffected by exposure, diet, or outside contact. It was clear this was not a random occurrence. It was also not a leftover from colonial visits. The trait was inherited and followed classic Mendelian patterns. That suggests a single recessive gene caused the hair color. The team double-checked samples, ruling out any errors. They tested for known European blonde genes and found nothing. Old explanations, such as sun, salt, fish, or foreign ancestry, had no DNA support. Instead, the evidence pointed to something never seen before. Researchers prepared to sequence the genomes of the 43 blondes. They also sequenced the 42 dark-haired controls. They hunted for the exact genetic difference unique to these islands. The groundwork was set for a breakthrough in genetics. The search for the Melanesian blonde gene became a focused scientific mission. The answer was waiting in DNA, hidden in plain sight for generations. Now the tools exist to find it clearly. The breakthrough arrived directly in DNA itself for us. Scientists sequenced Solomon Islander genomes and compared hair color groups. They found a single change in the TYRP1 gene. A cytosine was replaced by a thymine at one position. When inherited from both parents, the mutation removes pigment. The result is bright blonde curls on dark skin. The mutation is common on these islands among locals. 26% of Solomon Islanders carry the variant. Outside the Pacific, the variant disappears completely from populations. Researchers tested 941 people from 52 groups. Groups included Europeans, Africans, and Asians from around the world. Not a single individual carried the mutation anywhere. 0 carriers were found outside the islands anywhere else. DNA proved the blonde hair is not a European import. It is not a colonial legacy or sun effect. It is a unique genetic signature of these islands. The story could have ended there, but new evidence changed the picture. Scientists already knew European blonde hair comes from a different gene. In Europe, the key gene is KATLG that influences pigment. A specific mutation, RS12821256, drives the light hair in many Europeans. This mutation first appears in ancient DNA from Afontova Gora in Siberia. The date is 17,000 years ago, based on radiocarbon dating. Ancient North Eurasian peoples carried this allele westward. They spread it into ancestors of modern Europeans through migration. The two genes, TYRP1 and KATLG, share no connection at all. They operate on separate biological pathways without any overlap. There is no shared ancestry or migration link. The evidence is clear. One trait, two origins. Two completely different points in human history are represented. DNA solved this mystery completely for scientists worldwide. Blonde hair evolved along distinct genetic routes on opposite continents. The DNA evidence leaves no doubt about the dual origins. Blonde hair in Melanesia and Europe shows convergent evolution. Two populations, separated by 10,000 miles and thousands of years, share the same trait. DNA proves they followed completely different genetic routes. In Melanesia, the TYRP1 mutation changes a single DNA letter. In Europe, the KTLG gene creates blonde hair. These genes share no common ancestry or migration link. The evidence is definitive. The same outcome from different means. The discovery forced scientists to question long-standing assumptions. For decades, research focused almost entirely on European DNA. Traits in other populations were often dismissed or ignored. The Stanford team said their work deconstructs a Eurocentric view. They showed unique genetic traits can exist anywhere. The TYRP1 mutation appears in 26% of Solomon Islanders. It is completely absent in all 52 other populations worldwide. It is not a European gene that drifted across oceans. It arose from isolation, chance, and genetic drift. Small founding groups moved across stepping stone islands, spreading the mutation by chance. There was no survival advantage or selection pressure. Only the mathematics of drift in tiny populations applied. In Europe, blonde hair often darkens with age. Melanesian blondes keep bright color for life. The trait is binary. You either have it or you do not. Sean Miles called it a great example of convergent evolution. The DNA is clear and the old single origin story ends. Today, DNA proves that visible traits can emerge from completely different genetic paths. As genetic research expands beyond Europe, the hidden complexity of human diversity comes into focus. What else did we inherit from distant ancestors without ever being told the real story? Drop your thoughts below.